I think it's an interesting conversation because even Jeff Probst says himself that Survivor is like a social experiment, right? Like it's a microcosm of society.
Yeah.
So, it's just all of the factors that normally cause us stress and anxiety are 10x, right, in
Yeah.
that environment. Survivor isn't just a game. It's psychological warfare. You're starving, sleep deprived, paranoid, and still expected to make million-dollar decisions. Contestants are living on little to no calories a day while burning thousands, and it completely changes how the brain functions. People don't break out there because they're weak. They break because they're human. Today, we're breaking down why even the strongest contestants unravel. Let's dive in.
Today, we are going to be talking about Survivor.
Cassie's favorite show.
I'm so excited. If you are watching us on YouTube, you might notice the elephant in the room that only one of us has a buff on
I
today.
forgot my buff at home.
That's my fault. I should have packed your buff for you. We have buffs because we did a Survivor 50 premiere party. So Survivor 50 premiered a couple weeks ago, and they are basically bringing back old contestants and having them on the show again. And all of my family, we're all huge fans. So had a little premiere party.
We had a good spread of foods, some Survivor staples. We got some coconuts, and what else do we have?
We had rice, of course.
Rice.
And a lot of
sushi.
non-Survivor things.
Right.
Because they don't eat very much on the show.
No, unless they win a challenge, right?
So we pretended that we were at the sanctuary and that this was a reward.
There you go.
Because I don't think they have ice cream sandwiches on Survivor.
They don't.
So we made it work. So today we want to talk about the emotional implications of Survivor. You see these contestants break down on TV, and it's really easy to kind of judge them and think, oh, like, I wouldn't do that on TV. But when you think about the actual psychological tactics that they use on these contestants, I'm shocked that more of them don't break down.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation because even Jeff Probst says himself that Survivor is like a social experiment, right? Like it's a microcosm of society.
Yeah.
So, it's just all of the factors that normally cause us stress and anxiety are 10x, right, in that environment. So.
Yeah. And what I find so interesting is that that's always kind of been their goal from the beginning is we want to have a diverse group of people and see, okay, how do they coexist in this environment and kind of, like you said, make it a microcosm of everything else. And you even see throughout the seasons, because obviously this show has been on air for a very long time, you see the changes. You can actually pinpoint, if you pick a random season and you watch it, you can pinpoint what is going on culturally from what's going on this show, because it does bleed in so much to the gameplay, to the relationships, to what they're saying on TV. And I think that they've done a great job at that.
Yeah, I mean, how could it not, right? What's going on culturally, it's so relevant while you're out there. And I think it's very interesting, too, that if you look at the casting for each episode, they pick the same, like, there's always a therapist on there, right? It's always the same, like, profiles of people, which is interesting. Yeah, I wonder why they pick who they pick.
Right.
That would be interesting to think about.
The careers that people are in is very interesting because they do always have like a certain amount of like this type of career and that type of career. And you do see it's almost like a playbook. And I think that there's some seasons where you see, okay, maybe they've branched out a little bit, but then they always pull it back in and try to get it as close to like the original casting as they could. And obviously you see throughout the seasons, like it does change, but yeah, they definitely have an archetype of like who they pull from. And I'm sure they have reasons or, who they think is going to be really interesting on camera or who's going to cause drama, that kind of thing. And what I love about the show too is that as the host, Jeff Probst has always shown an immense amount of respect for the players and the game. Like, obviously, throughout the seasons, there are some contestants he doesn't like. I think he's actually ever only publicly stated he did not like one contestant, and that was Russell Hantz. And if you are a Survivor fan, you know who Russell is. And if you don't, the reason that I think Jeff is not a huge fan of him is because Russell has outwardly spoken negatively about the game and disagreeing with the way that they picked the winner. So his whole thing is he'll do whatever he can to get to the end. But when he gets to the end, nobody votes for him because he's just done terrible things to people.
You ruin relationships.
He ruins relationships.
Way, right?
And so he has been very outspoken against like, well, I don't think it's fair that if I played like the best Survivor game in his eyes, that I'm not going to win because I stepped on people, because how do you get to end if you don't step on people? And so he's been, obviously has spoken out about that.
Yeah, I mean, but that kind of goes against the point of the game, right? Is to,
Yeah.
you have to. That's one huge component of the
Right.
game is the social relationships. Right?
Yes.
I love watching Jeff Probst like every season because he's a bit of a therapist himself, really. In the way he asks questions and the way he gets to, information out of people, and he kind of stirs up emotion during tribal councils and everything. It's really very impressive to watch and really entertaining.
Yeah, and he's very well spoken when he addresses things, and it's funny, you see different compilations of like Jeff being a savage, and he definitely has those moments. I think he's kind of a no nonsense person.
Right.
So people who I think try to be like ridiculous on TV or try to shift blame to other things, he's really good at kind of reining it back in. But I think untherapist like he can definitely sometimes be a little shady to the contestants.
Well, it's interesting because like most people play Survivor once if they're on the show, right? You have some people that they like to bring back, for several episodes or whatever. Maybe I think probably the most frequently played person has maybe gone through the Survivor 3-4 times.
I think 4 times.
4
is
times,
the most
right?
out. Yeah.
Jeff Probst has been through 50.
Yes.
So he's the boss.
He has seen everything.
He's seen everything, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So let's talk about why Survivor is the perfect psychological storm. So you take kind of the basic needs. We have little to no food, no sleep, constant uncertainty, social pressure, and it's this kind of perfect storm to essentially have a breakdown. I mean, if you're in your everyday life and you even have a bad night of sleep and then you skip breakfast and then you get in a fight with your spouse, I would imagine that is going to lead to some sort of big emotional response from you. And these people are put through this every single day.
Yeah, willingly, right?
Willingly, right.
How many calories are they eating per day?
So
Or are they not?
when the show first started and up until maybe season 40, I think it was in the 40s when it shifted, but I could be wrong on that. They were given rice every day.
Right.
So the tribe was given, I think it was a bag of rice, and then it was up to them to make that rice last however long it could be. And then, of course, they would go on rewards and different things like that. On the newer seasons, they actually cut the time that you're on Survivor down. So they're not out there as long. So to make it harder, they stopped giving rice to people. So people are coming on the beach, they have no rice. So they are not given any food.
Except for challenges, right? I guess
If you win certain challenges,
Yeah.
you can go to what's called the sanctuary now. So it used to be rewards where they would take you to different places. So just kind of give the overview. Survivor used to be filmed in all different places. So they would go to all different countries. They went to China, and they just went to really, really cool, interesting places. And obviously
39 days, right? Was the
I believe it was 39 days. Yeah. And now it's
26.
Is it 26 or 23?
It's
It's in the
26.
20s. So now they only film in Fiji. So they kind of have their setup. They're at the same island. And which is really cool.
Logistically, it makes sense. But
Logistically, it makes sense. But now, so they used to go on rewards, like, that would be different kind of excursions on the country that they were in. And now they can go to what's called the sanctuary and they can get food rewards. But really, like, they're starting off with nothing. And then, of course, they can win fishing gear. They can go fishing. And you have that element of it. But essentially, they're not given any food. So I cannot imagine being in that environment and not having food. And then on top of it, every time you do a challenge, 9 out of 10 times, the challenges are incredibly physical. You're talking like you're burning thousands of calories just to get through the challenge.
right.
And then on top of that, you're not eating. And then you have all the physical elements of just, camp life and being at a beach and, washing your clothes in the ocean, all these things that take up extra calories that you just wouldn't normally do at home.
Yeah, it's like it is the perfect storm.
It's the perfect storm. So it's no wonder why people are breaking down out there. And, what's interesting is that you see people having these big emotional outbursts at times. But then another big common thread you see is that people have emotional responses, but they view them in a really positive light. If you talk to some of the contestants that they bring back, time after time, they say the reason I'm coming back is because every time I'm out here, it breaks me down, but then it builds me back up. And the confidence that I get from doing this show or putting myself in these uncomfortable situations, like I bring that back home with me.
Yeah, it's deep work, right? Like because we go through life and there's all these factors and things that are going on that are affecting our psyche, that are affecting our mood. And like at the end of the day, like a lot of them are not very important, right? So when you are placed in this scenario, when you're on this island, you stripped of all of the distractions and the comfort, like there's really nothing left to focus on than like yourself. And the game inherently is very focused on emotions and relationships and all these things that, just really have a huge impact on us.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, they do not talk to loved ones out there. We'll get into that a little bit because sometimes they can win the opportunity to see their loved ones, but they don't have phones out there. They're not communicating back home. So they are completely isolated with strangers, essentially. Like they don't have contact with the outside world. There was actually a season that they filmed when Trump became president, and like they didn't know, like they don't know what's going on. Like they come home and they're like, oh, who's president? Or like if like a major disaster happens, like they don't know about it when they're out there. They find out when they get home. And you've actually seen there's been seasons where, Jeff has had to come and tell someone, hey, like a loved one has had an emergency, like, and that person can choose to leave the game for that. But other than that, like they really don't know what's going on at all with the outside world.
Right. Or, maybe it's part of a gameplay where someone's grandma dies, but we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. So we are going to kind of go through some of the psychological pieces that we talked about. We're going to show some videos. If you have not watched all of the Survivor seasons, just know that there could be some spoilers in the episodes that we're showing. We will not show anything from season 50. I would never do that to anybody because we are not even all caught up yet and we're not going to spoil that. But there are some things from older seasons. The first one that we are going to show is a clip to show starvation and brain function. So we're talking about the lack of food. This is from season 46, episode 10.
I'm pissed! Y'all say you ain't gone without eating? I see you eat every day!
Oh, man. So to give some background context, this is a situation where this contestant they were doing a competition where they could win a food reward, and she did not win. And she had hoped that the person who would win would choose her to go because he could choose people to take with them. And he did not choose her. And so she had this kind of big reaction of, I guess, like, you guys have eaten, you guys have had access to food. I have not had access to food. She said that she hadn't eaten in, a few days. And that was her emotional response to not being brought on this reward and to not have access to food, which is, you could see the way she's yelling and the way she's responding. Raw. It's so raw and it's so primal.
Yeah.
Like that need for food. Like this is not like a comfort of, oh, I would really like to have that. You could tell that was a deep, like, I need this, and you just took it away from me.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, you watch and say, listen, he can take whoever he wants. That's not his responsibility to take her. But you can understand where that response comes from.
Yeah, very guttural.
That was very guttural.
And I think that is the result of, one, just being so hungry that you can't really think or focus on anything else. But then all of the other factors of the game just kind of like loading up, and the body is just, it was almost like a physiological response that she couldn't hold back. Now, what's interesting is what we didn't show, for the rest of this clip is that afterwards she almost immediately gets it out, releases it, and then comes to her senses, and she actually apologizes to everybody there and just says okay, I just freaked out. We can return to our normal gameplay now.
Yeah.
And it's funny, Jeff Probst just, obviously says you don't have to apologize. It's okay. This is a normal response. But I just think that the breakdown followed by the immediate almost regulation just illustrates that biological, physiological reaction versus that almost facade or psyche or whatever stepping in and being okay, I'm controlled. I understand yourself. That was a little weird. I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah, and I have so much respect for the fact that she reined it in after and apologized, because you can tell that was so deep and raw, like you said, to be able to rein yourself in after that and take accountability and say, whoa, okay, that She even made a comment, when I went through my divorce, I didn't even yell like that because you're just in such a pressured environment. And something we didn't mention is that you're being filmed 24/7.
Yeah.
So think about when you're at your lowest and you are struggling and you're having an emotional outburst, because we all do, then having a camera shoved in your face. And I think when you see a lot of these reality shows, it can be like, okay, we're showing up at this time to film you in this situation. Obviously, we know a lot of reality shows, they try to turn up the drama, but you might even have a little bit more control over how you want to be perceived. But in this situation, when you're being filmed at all times and you're being put through all these psychological things, it's understandable that you would have really little control over like how you respond.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure like if we had a camera filming us at our worst points, right? Like it would probably look something like that. Like,
And then aired.
And then in reality, like, we have the ability to, get some privacy or, use other coping skills or strategies to, rein ourselves in. But out here, it's just you're stripped of everything. There's none of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have this extreme glucose depletion, and that leads to poor decision making. Maybe like the decision to have an outburst, or even just in general, the decisions that people make in the game. A lot of people will use starvation as like a tactic to be like, if they have a reward, let's say, and they want to bring someone with them, they'll say, well, I don't want that person to come with me because they'll be stronger, in the next couple days. They'll be more clear headed. They will do better in the next competition. I don't want that for them. So I'm not taking them. It's like, and I think
Savage.
that's why part of her reaction was so emotional. And it's actually funny because in the clip, we obviously can't show too much of it, but he made a comment to her like, hey, you voted for me last night. Like, she tried to get him out of the game the night before. So it's just funny that it's like she still felt that like deep sense of like, you betrayed me. Like, you could have given this to me and you didn't. And that was really inhumane of you. And he's like, well, you were going to vote me out. So why would I give that to you?
Right.
But you could just see that sense of like thinking, well, like, we can still human to human. You can still do this for me. So
that's a theme that we see a lot, like in Survivor. The separation from gameplay to like the human component of it is a big theme that's kind of weaved throughout that.
Yeah. Increased irritability is huge. Obviously, when you are hungry, the term hangry is a term for a reason, because when you are hungry, you do have emotional responses. You do get irritable. It's hard to be around people when you're in that state of mind. All you're thinking about, you're obsessing about food. The only thing you want is to eat in that moment. You have that. You have emotional volatility, like we just saw in that clip, and you see that all throughout Survivor. People freaking out, and they don't always attribute it to their hunger. I mean, a lot of times they know, okay, I'm in this environment. Obviously, I have all these factors, but it's not every time that they're like, well, it's because I'm hungry. But we know that is such a huge factor in what's going on here.
Yeah, I almost feel like they don't even like acknowledge or mention it like as much as it should be, like the role that it plays.
Yeah.
It's funny, you see like the episodes like with the chickens, like people get so hungry and then they usually give them the chickens, and like you have some people who like are like just like kill the chickens, like I want to eat, and then other people that are like they're so hungry, but they forego killing the chickens with that human element there.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, did you peek at what the Am I the Problem is today?
I might have.
Oh, I was going to say, because we're going to talk about that. I thought you were randomly bringing that up. I was like, wow, yeah. This is a relevant topic.
We're foreshadowing.
We're foreshadowing. I love that. But yeah, so your brain actually uses about 20% of your body's total energy. So when you are depleted, like your calories are depleted, you are not eating, your brain is going to be one of the first things that are affected. And actually, a lot of contestants lose 10 to 25 pounds while they're out there. So you're talking about some of these contestants, they're there for less than a month. They used to be there for like a little more than a month. 10 to 25 pounds. That is so much weight. There's actually a contestant, Tony, who we'll talk about in a little bit. He said because he had won a season, and he had said that it took him over a year to get his body back to a place where it didn't feel so depleted and sick. He said he lost like a ton of muscle mass, that he had a lot of physical symptoms actually when he got home that he had to work on from not eating.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's not a healthy rate of weight loss
by
any means, right?
Yeah. Okay, so the next topic we're going to dive into is sleep deprivation. And funny that we brought up Tony. So, we want to talk about how sleep deprivation is another kind of fuel for these emotional breakdowns. And this is one of my favorite clips from Survivor, actually. And it's Tony just kind of like provoking another contestant. And maybe he's like this in real life. I don't know. I think it's funny. But I do think that the lack of sleep combined with a lack of food, you get people who are having these kind of big emotional reactions that maybe in real life
Maybe you
wouldn't
wouldn't
see.
treat somebody like this in real life.
Maybe you
right?
wouldn't treat someone like this in real life. So let's take a look.
I'm sorry, I don't talk Lama. I'm supposed to talk Lama to you. You understand that better? And she calls me an animal. So I had to talk to her like I'm an animal. So I said, so she could understand me. And she got offended by that, Jeff.
It's so funny.
She got offended by that.
Like, I love how he's like, why would that offend her? Like, I'm yelling at her like she's a llama. Like, so to give some context of this clip, basically her name is Cass, and Tony had revealed to her what he thought was a secret. Like so many people do in the game, she went and she told other people what he was saying, and he kind of confronted her. He was like, hey, why would you share a secret that I gave you? And she said, well, I didn't know it was a secret. And he's like, what do you mean you didn't know it was a secret? Well, I have to talk llama to you because when I speak English, like you don't understand what I'm saying. So that's how the llama talk came into play. So again, you're seeing the lack of food, the lack of sleep, leading people to become so emotional about things that maybe in real life you might be like, okay, I'm not happy that this person did this to me, but maybe I can take a step back and I can kind of like chill out and assess the situation instead of yelling at them like they're a llama.
Right. It is a little bit of a funny clip, but
It's funny, but maybe not to her.
Not
I mean,
to her.
she handled it very well.
she was
like,
very graceful about it, actually.
She kind of just brushed him
because,
off.
you know, on the other side of it, like, her response could have been just as, you know,
Yeah.
offensive, or like she could have gone off and gone, you know. So it's interesting how she was able to keep her composure.
Yeah. So some effects we see when you don't sleep, you have a very low frustration tolerance, which we all know. Everybody, when you don't get enough sleep, you are grumpy. It is a fact. It is hard to get through your day and be nice to everyone around you and be excited for the things that you have going on when you are not sleeping.
Yep.
It is one of the biggest emotional factors. And we actually had a sleep expert on the podcast where we talked about, you know, that link between sleep and mental health because it is huge.
One of the other things that comes up a lot in Survivor, paranoia. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So hypervigilance and paranoia. We are going to play a clip. So to give a little background of this clip before we play it is that this contestant, her name is Danny, she was in a pretty solid alliance. They were like, we got your back. We're good. They are going into their next block of voting at tribal council, and because she feels like they're being a little distanced from her, she starts getting really like kind of paranoid, and eventually, spoiler alert, kind of blows up her alliance because she starts kind of spilling the beans on who's in her alliance because she was getting paranoid. So let's play the clip.
It's been 14 years since I've played, and the game has changed a lot, and I'm trying to adapt to that right now, but I feel like I've been left out, and now I'm not even sure about my old school alliance. I feel like it's me going home tonight. It's not hard to pick up on that when people are walking off and talking and nobody's including you on anything, even Parvati, who I thought I was very close to.
It's actually very sad to watch that clip and to know kind of like the emotional turmoil that she was going through. It kind of reminds me of like that middle school situation.
Lunch table situation.
Yeah,
right?
where you feel like you're being left out. And when you kind of watch the whole episode and the whole clip, when the three people were off talking and she felt like she was being left out, they were actually talking about who they were going to vote out that night, and it had nothing to do with
It had
her.
nothing to do with her, right? Yeah.
And you know, people who are kind of in these situations and they feel so left out, it's because you're feeling so vulnerable and things are so heightened, and it can make you very hypervigilant. It can make you very paranoid because you just believe, first of all, you believe that everyone's lying. There's very few people who come on this show who actually believe the things that are being told to them. Of course you have it and you're screaming at your TV like, why are you believing that person? Or people who do have really good alliances and you're like, this is amazing because this rarely happens. But you just assume that everyone's lying to you, which can obviously lead to a state of paranoia. And then you have the causes your brain to shift into this kind of detective mode of like, okay, I have to suss out every single person's actions and every single person's statement to see, are they actually lying to me or not? Which, could you imagine trying to have social interactions like that?
Yeah, I know. And like she's not like being irrational here. Like it's part of the gameplay to
Yeah.
like, if you see if you're picking up on these subtle cues,
Yeah.
like that's actually good gameplay. It just so happens that they are not
Yeah.
talking about her and it wasn't relevant, but I wouldn't say like her intrusive thoughts were necessarily like irrational. I think they were probably warranted. And if you're tuned into the game, like that's probably happening like 24/7.
Yeah. And a lot of times when that does happen and someone kind of realizes, oh, I'm like on the outskirts of my lines, I have to do something, it's a good move that they're doing that. But in this situation, she went and kind of like told the other people, hey, I was supposed to be in this alliance. I don't know what's going on now. And so when the alliance got wind of it, of course, we're like, we got to vote her out. This is not like, she's not a good member of our alliance because she's not trusting us. So that's where the social play is so like it's like this dance that you have to do of knowing, okay, like you don't want to be too much, but you don't want to be doing too little at the same time. And because everyone's together, again, 24/7, you don't get a break from it either. So if you're feeling a little paranoid about someone or you want to be like really on high alert about someone, then you're sleeping next to them every night. You're competing with them every day. Like you don't get this break from them, which I think, of course, can lead to a huge state of paranoia and that feeling of, am I truly safe?
Yeah, and I mean, there's nowhere to go, right?
Right.
Like you're in the game, you're fully immersed. You can't. There's no getting out. The only way out is through tribal council, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you will see people who it affects way more than others, where they are analyzing every single conversation, every single head nod. They're watching other people like talking and like trying to figure out what they're talking about. And most people do that, but some people it really affects more than others.
Yeah, well, I mean, it like everything's stripped. Your personalities really come through because everything else is stripped away.
Yeah.
So if you go into Survivor and you're just naturally more of a person that is prone to being a little bit more anxious or overthinking things, like that's going to be amplified in those types of environments.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The next thing that we are going to talk about is accelerated relationships and betrayal. So I'm going to show a clip that is two people, Adam and Jay, and kind of throughout the game, they had this kind of love-hate relationship where like they liked each other, but they felt like they were threatened and they couldn't really work together. And then I'm going to show this moment where it's almost like in an instant, they had this big emotional bond that you see a lot in Survivor that is not as typical in, your everyday life.
Can I tell you something that I haven't told anyone in this game? What? My mom has stage 4 lung cancer. That's why this means so much to me. I'm doing it for her.
I've been scared for the past 9 years when my mom's gonna die, bro.
I'm so scared.
I love my mom just like he does. And it's crazy because, like, my mom's got brain aneurysms. Me and Adam are both out here for our families, for our moms. He's not a weasel in my book anymore. He's a good freaking dude. He's a warrior.
Oh, it's so emotional. It's so emotional.
Wow, so quickly like a perception can change though,
Yeah.
right? Like that one moment of vulnerability just shifts the entire relationship.
Yes. And you see that a lot with these accelerated relationships. And then on the opposite side, if you have a situation where they're having this moment and then they immediately turn on each other or something like that, you see why it is so emotionally damaging to people. Because I think a lot of times you watch, the final jury and they're so mad at the contestants who are still in the game. And they're saying, like, you hurt me so much. Like, I was so close to you. And from the outside, you could be like, well, you were only together for 15 days.
It's
like,
just a game.
Just a game. How close could you have been? But then you see, this little 40-second clip of how someone can kind of like trauma bond over something really big because you're in this super hyper emotional state that then if you go and you betray that person, yeah, of course they're going to feel super emotional about that. They're going to have a big reaction to that.
Yeah, it's hard to, I think for the contestants, it's sometimes hard to separate that real life human connection and component with like what the gameplay requires sometimes.
Absolutely. And they have the shared adversity to begin with because they're all lacking sleep, lacking food, feeling paranoid, isolated from the outside world. They can't see their family. They're all going through this adversity together. And then on top of that, they just have this need for safety. So you see a lot that people will kind of cling to each other because they're like, I don't have anything else. And, you know, maybe this person's lying to me, but if it makes me feel safe even for an hour out of my day, it's something that I wouldn't have otherwise. And to me, that's worth having because it's such a biological need to want to feel like you're safe and secure with someone.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
The next thing that we are going to talk about is identity crisis. Who am I out here? A lot of people struggle with trying to balance gameplay with what they consider being a good person. So in the game, you have to lie, you have to manipulate, you have to betray. Some people get through the game with doing that way less than others. A lot of people catch a lot of heat for doing it too much, but it's always, how do I find that balance between doing this and then being a person at home? There's been people who have been on the show who have been cops, and they've had to say, I've had, like, the people back home have had to tell me, you have permission to lie, cheat, and steal out there because, like, I know you wouldn't normally do that. And, like, you have to do that on Survivor.
Yeah.
And there's this cognitive dissonance that happens because that's not who they are in their everyday life. So I am going to play a clip. This is someone who is having a visit from home. So his friend is visiting him. And I will let the clip speak for itself.
Oh, dude, how's it? Huh? How's it?
She died, dude. Did you get the letter? Did you go in?
My grandmother's sitting home watching Jerry Springer right now.
Like, I can.
Savage. Like,
So
he had the other people crying.
Oh, if you watch the whole clip, people are sobbing and they feel so bad for him, which is exactly why he planned on doing it.
So I guess he had to premeditate this before he
on
the show. He's
so
like,
that
this
was
is
his
what I'm
friend.
gonna do.
Yeah, and he told him, you know, if we make it to this point and you come out, you need to tell me that my grandma died. So he knew, like, okay, this is what I have to do.
I wonder what do you think his reasoning behind doing that was?
He wanted the sympathy because it's such an emotional game. So if you just found out that your grandma died, am I going to vote you out that night? Like, that would feel really
That would be
savage,
hard
wouldn't
to
it?
do. It'd
That would
be
be
hard
hard
for
to
someone to
do.
do, right,
Yeah. And I think that maybe a little bit more, this is an older episode, and in the more what they consider old school gameplay, you do see more kind of cut and dry emotional decisions. So someone's not helping out around the camp, we're going to vote them out. Someone went through like a big emotional thing, like, let's try to have a little more grace with them. I feel like the new school players are more like, oh, they found out their grandma died, we need to vote him out because that's going to be a good story at the end, and we can't let him get to the end. So I think that it's gotten a little less like that. But yeah, he's like, well, they're not going to vote me out. And it's funny because you have these other people who come out and they really struggle with this piece of it of, how do I lie? How do I manipulate? And he's made such a name for himself on that one clip. He's actually on, what's it called? Cameo, where you can get, he's on Cameo and you can hire him to, like, say happy birthday or whatever. And he always starts with, hey, this is Johnny Fairplay from Survivor, the one who said his grandma died. Like, he's had his grandma come on Cameos before. Like,
really?
she's into it. Like, he's really, like, made a career out of it. So I don't think he's struggling so much with that cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, obviously not. Yeah, he's rolling with it.
He's rolling with it. But other people do. And it creates real psychological discomfort for people. So, you know, obviously I picked that because it's an iconic clip. But the people who put themselves maybe in less situations like that, but more of like, I'm going to vote this person out tonight, but I can't tell them that to their face, so I have to lie to them. In the moment, you can look at it like, well, it's just good gameplay, but it creates real psychological discomfort for these players.
Yeah, I wonder if people ever end up like going home and just like feeling regretful about the amount of lying they did or betrayal. Like, you know, I wonder if people hold that with them, or you know, how easy is it to actually like get back home and readjust and like, you know, say to yourself, oh, it was just a game. You know, because you actually did what you did.
You did what you did, right. And I think that there's probably a lot of embarrassment and shame when you go home of, I have to watch this with my family and then show them what I did. And maybe for some people, like, okay, yeah, you didn't tell that person you were voting them out. Of course, like, you can't do that. But then other people who have really turned on people who were there for them, Yeah, I'm sure that they really struggle with that. And, you see people kind of going through their justification loops of like, well, I had to do it for this reason, or I had to do it for this reason. And they kind of like, they're doing it because they are so uncomfortable and they have to figure out a way to just feel better while they're in the game. And unfortunately for some people, they're removed from the game early for it because they end up getting voted out because, you always see the clips where people tell someone straight to their face, yeah, by the way, I'm voting you out tonight. And then that person scurries. And then before you know it, like that other person is voted out for being so candid and obnoxious about it, because now it's seen as like, if you do that to someone, you're just being obnoxious. Like, how dare you tell someone you're going to vote them out? So really every single episode before tribal council, they're all lying to each other. And that's what they do.
Right. That's the flow of the game.
That's the flow of the game.
Yeah.
And there's people, when they're called out for lying, they'll say, like, I don't understand. Like, you signed up for Survivor. We all have to lie. Like, why would you think I would be any different?
Right.
So it is interesting, some of the people who feel more strongly about it, and then other people who are like, okay, it's part of a game, but then where are the boundaries? And like, what is a game and what is real life? And I think it's so blurred when you're in that situation. It's way easier when you're watching it.
Yeah, it is interesting how the game has evolved and how the perceptions of right and wrong and just really how you're supposed to act on the show have changed. Like, I remember watching Survivor like when I was much younger.
Yeah.
And the physical aspect of surviving was like a little bit more pronounced, right, than it is now. There was well, I don't even know if I should say it, but in season 50.
Yeah, no spoilers.
Okay, I won't say it.
No, you can say it. It was only episode 2.
In season 50, like, you have like some iconic old school players, but then you have like the newer group.
Yeah.
And the difference in work ethic is, palpable, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, and the old school players get like almost like mad at the new school players, and they call them lazy and like they're not helping out around camp, and that actually becomes a big issue.
Yeah.
Of the dynamics. But the new school players are like, I'm here to play Survivor. Like, I'm not here to work and like physically survive, right? So it's a funny, it shows the differences in the mentalities between old school and new school.
It really does. And sometimes I feel so bad because you'll have the people who are really hardworking around camp who provide food. And like, yeah, great, thanks for doing that. I'm voting you out now.
It almost doesn't matter, right?
The social relationships are more important in a lot of ways.
Yeah, like I remember in the older episodes, they would be like, oh, we need to keep him because he's such a hard worker around camp.
Yes.
We can't vote him out because like we need that labor, and they respected it.
Yes.
Greatly,
I feel like they don't really care about that anymore.
They don't.
They're like,
They
well,
don't.
you're my friend. I don't care if you're
They're
laying
like,
around
we're here
camp
for
all
26
day.
days. Who cares?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yep.
So the next thing we want to talk about is a loss of control and learned helplessness. So I'm going to show a clip from another iconic player, Suri. And again, spoiler alert, but this is an old season where she has done a lot of things right. Her name was not on anyone's parchment to go home, but because of things that are completely out of her control, she ends up going home. I remember the first time I watched this clip and I was like, what? This was the first time, maybe the last time this has ever happened in Survivor history.
Have an idol, it's a blue idol. I like to play for myself. And have another one, a red one. I would like to play for Aubrey.
Hey, Jeff. I've got a secret advantage, which is a legacy advantage. This is only good for right now, and I don't need a souvenir, so there you go.
I'm gonna get on the mutiny train and give you that because I just feel like being in the final 5.
Means, Suri, it doesn't matter what votes are in the urn because the only person who can receive votes
Me.
is you.
It's wild. That has never happened before in Survivor. So basically everybody had all these advantages. And even though Suri was playing a great game, Jeff actually later said, like, just so you know, your name was not even on the parchment at all. She ended up going home because of all of these things that were out of her control. Wow. And that goes back to that kind of paranoia, because it's that feeling of this learned helplessness of like, I can do everything right and I can still be sent home.
I mean, life kind of works the same way, right?
Yeah.
Like when you think about it, like, you could be walking down the street and, something terrible could happen.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And like, that's out of your control. So,
Yeah.
it is like a microcosm of life. Like sometimes the chips land where they are and,
Yep.
Fate ends up happening, and but that's hard to process for her.
Hard. I mean, thankfully they've had her back on since then. They've given her a do-over. But lack of control is one of the strongest reasons that people deal with anxiety. When you talk to someone who really struggles with anxiety, there's always it's always centered around control. How can I control the situations around me, the people around me, like all of this stuff? And when you're in an environment like that, and like you're saying in real life too, but you really have no control over the things. I mean, there's times that people are completely comfortable in their positions and they're like, drop your buffs, you're switching tribes. And you're like, wait, I have all these relationships. I just did all this work and now you're going home because of a tribe switch. Like there's just so much that is thrown at them every single day that they have zero control over. And I'm sure that was really, really hard for Sari to process in that moment that her game was going well. Like she didn't even do anything wrong. The only thing she did wrong was not have an immunity idol.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Got to pivot. Well, you can in her position.
She can pivot, but she did get back on the show.
Okay,
and actually,
so-
she's on season 50, so she's fun to watch. But when outcomes feel random, people's motivation and their emotional stability, it drops fast. Because there is this thing where you feel like if something is within my control, I will do everything to make that happen. But if it's not in my control, why am I going to bother? What am I doing here? If I have no control over it, why am I going to do anything other than feel hopeless?
You have a couple of those back to back, it just kind of beats you down, and you get into that headspace of like, what's the point? Right?
Yeah. So the last topic I'm going to talk about is why people cry so much. And while I was editing the videos to show today,
I know you ended up crying. I'm like, I look over and I'm like, what are you crying about?
I'm such a sucker for this. So we were about to go into like a meeting with our team, and of course I'm like, let me edit this video beforehand, and I'm literally like, oh no, like I'm trying to like hold my tears back while I watch it. And this is actually about like contact with home, contact with family, and I don't even think they do it on the newer seasons as much anymore, but they used to do family visits. You could win a family visit. And in this situation, you could win a phone conversation, a video with a loved one. And all of her tribe mates, actually, it was an auction. They all gave her money so that she could win the auction and get this video from home. And she was so emotional about it. And then later she finds out that actually her husband is there and she gets to see him in person. And these family visits, when people go 15, 20 days without seeing their families, even just a letter from home, will just cause people to have complete emotional breakdowns. And every time there's a family episode on Survivor, I am so emotional about it. And you're always like, what are you doing? Like, this is ridiculous. But I think I'm too empathetic and I put myself in their situation. I'm like, if I had to go 20 days without talking to Brandon and you showed up in Fiji or wherever, I don't even know where they are, like I would lose my mind. Like I would absolutely lose my mind. Or just getting a letter from you. That's
good to know.
Yeah. That would be the motivation to get me through. And that's what people use this for. It's motivation. But we are going to talk about why people cry so much. And we're going to watch this heart-wrenching video. It was hard to even cut down because I was like, I want to watch the whole thing.
I'm going to try to hold back my tears.
Yes, please do.
You hear that last line?
I did.
There's one line on there. Might have been a little hard to hear. There's one line.
See you back again.
Oh my God. It just dawned on her.
I am literally tearing up watching. How could you not tear up watching that? And they had mentioned before that she had a baby at home. I think she had a toddler. And I'm like, oh, my heart. I can't. So let's talk about why people cry so much. I'm literally, So emotional release from chronic stress, right? They're just constantly stressed out. They're in these positions where we talked about all the reasons that we talked about. And crying can be that release. Like you had mentioned that woman who was screaming and crying, and then she's like, okay, sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, crying it's a biological function that is for emotional regulation, right? Like there's a purpose for crying, and so you really need a lot of that when you're out there on the island.
Yes. And you can feel a lot better after you cry. If you have a good cry to release everything, it really can be very healing. Another reason is like they have no distractions. So, one of the things that people, when they're struggling with their mental health, is that they don't like being alone sometimes. They don't like the quietness. You see a lot of people who, when they struggle with anxiety, they might really want to fill their schedule and just have like a million things going on at all times because they don't want to be alone. They don't want to be with their thoughts. That could be really scary. Out here, you're alone with your thoughts. You don't have a phone. You don't have family members. You don't have any of these things. So, of course, your emotions are going to be so heightened. You're going to cry more than you would on a normal basis because of these circumstances. You're just alone with your thoughts and, of course, missing your family and the attachment. But yes, crying does regulate your emotions. And why does any of this matter in real life? Listen, most people listening to this are not going to go on Survivor. If you do, tell us because we will be so excited.
Well, I think it's a good illustration that all of us are not too far from being in that place.
Well, I would hope we are. I would hope that you're sleeping and eating more than rice.
We hope for that, right? But I love the show because it shows the rawness of the human state, and how if we strip away everything, all these things happen, and it's just very interesting to watch. How people react and how they deal with those circumstances that they're faced with.
And on hopefully a smaller level, people who are dealing with chronic stress, sleep deprivation, relationship insecurity, decision fatigue, all of these things. Maybe you do struggle with eating and that is something that affects your day to day. Just understand that is going to have an impact on your mental health. That's why we bring on these different experts to the podcast to say, we are one bucket of it, but there's also all these other things that really affect it as well. That of course is going to make a difference. So I know we kind of brought this up. I'm going to read you the Am I the Problem? And I want to see your reaction.
Okay.
Because
let's do it.
We know that you have some feelings about this. Okay. Is it me or is Wendy selfish? The backstory is that Wendy was on a tribe that won chickens as a prize, and she stopped them from slaughtering the chickens. Like we talked about, people are very hungry. They won chickens. They have the opportunity to go back to camp, and they can either, sometimes they're egg-laying chickens, sometimes they're not. Do you want to keep them? Do we want to slaughter them? So she wrote, "Don't get me wrong. I like the way she acted on TV and loved the drama that followed. And I would love to see more of that on the show. But that is only as a TV show character. As a person, I think she'd be suffocating to live or work with. She's extremely stubborn and never thinks of anyone else but herself. I can sympathize if she does not want to hurt animals. Fine. Each can have their own opinion. But to force your opinion down other people's throat is not right. If she doesn't like it, she can just refuse to take part in the slaughtering or eating of the chickens. But to actively sabotage the entire tribe for her own ideal is extremely self-centered and selfish. She's the exact kind of activist that gives veganism a bad name. She stole the flint, which was not hers, making the tribe struggle to get fire. She released the chickens, which were not hers, depriving her teammates from the food they need. Imagine working with her on a project. If she doesn't like part of it, then she causes the project to fail because she did not get her way with the direction." Whoa.
Yeah.
What are our thoughts?
Well, I think that she's the problem. That's how I feel about it. And really, like, my decision on that is solely based on the game and the way it's structured. So, like, that's just part of the game. Like, you come on the game and they have the chickens and people are going to want to eat. If it was a democracy, if everybody voted and decided not to, slaughter the chickens, then that's one thing, but if the overwhelming majority of the tribe, wants to eat the chickens, it's part of the game. It's just part of the gameplay. And I think like you signed up for Survivor, that's a factor of it. Like I think if you're uncomfortable with it, you can sustain, but I would say she's the problem. Maybe you disagree with me. I don't know.
No, I agree. There have been This is actually a topic that's come up a lot with the chickens. People who, don't eat them because, of like dietary reasons. They're a vegan, they're a vegetarian. But then you also have people who do eat chicken, but they are just so emotional about the idea of slaughtering a chicken that they don't want anything to do with it. So they will kind of remove themselves. They'll walk away from the beach. They'll tell them like, hey, like, I'm really not comfortable with this. Please don't talk about it in front of me. Don't eat the chicken in front of me. Like kind of remove themselves. But I agree, especially since we just talked about all of the emotional aspects that go into it, and starvation being one of them, and now there is this food source for people.
Yeah, like if you're not comfortable lying, don't go on Survivor, right? Like if you're not comfortable like physically exerting yourself to the point of exhaustion, right? Like don't go on Survivor, right? If you're not comfortable with the chicken scenarios, like maybe Survivor's not the game for you. So that's kind of how I feel about it. But it is interesting because I think like most of us go through life like we buy our chicken from the grocery store. We don't have to physically slaughter the chicken to eat it, right?
So personal.
So that's something that people aren't normally faced with. So it's it's interesting. I personally wouldn't really want to slaughter chicken.
No.
You
would eat it though.
I eat chicken.
Yeah.
So
would you eat it on Survivor?
The chicken?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't slaughter it.
Like I wouldn't be jumping to slaughter it. Like
you wouldn't be volunteering.
Like if I had to slaughter it, I mean, I guess I could do it, but it's not something I would like enjoy or like try to like. I'd be like, oh, I'll do it,
Well, I don't eat chicken, so I would definitely not be slaughtering it. I probably would not be eating it. Maybe if I was out there all the time and I was starving, I might force myself to eat some chicken, but. Yeah, it wouldn't be my first choice.
I think you'd eat the chicken.
You think so? If I was that hungry.
I've seen you hungry. I think.
You pray for my tribe mates that I eat the chicken. You have seen vegans on the show eat meat before because they get a reward and they're like, I gotta eat.
I guess it just depends on how convicted you are.
Exactly.
Right, in your beliefs, right?
Yeah, how hungry you are.
How hungry you are.
Well, this was awesome. This is my dream to do a podcast all about Survivor.
I'm glad we can make it happen.
Yes. So super excited for season 50. Can't wait to finish the season. I mean, it's not even all out yet, but when it is, we are super pumped about it.
Awesome.